Hey, it's that time again. Time for another episode of Shelve It or Shove It, the completely superficial way to pick books for your TBR based solely on their covers. I am your host, Daisy X Machina, the drag queen detective who investigates all things speculative in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. I'll be going on to Goodreads and looking at new releases for the month of February in the categories of science fiction, fantasy, and horror, and picking one book to add to my TBR in March. And we're starting with science fiction. First up is The Strange Case of Jane O by Karen Thompson Walker. I do not like this cover. Apparently it's a best-selling author of Age of Miracles. I haven't heard of that book. I haven't heard of the author. The cover is this weird sort of grainy picture of, I guess, Jane O. This looks like a young girl to me with sort of this kaleidoscope of colors around her. Do not like it at all. I'm going to shove it. Next up is The Fourth Consort by Edward Ashton, and it looks kind of retro. I kind of like this retro look. It reminds me of the cover of Radix, actually, if you've ever seen that. But anyway, I like sort of the retro look of these mountain, I guess it's a spaceman, and it says something about Mickey 7. So is this a series? I don't know. I just like the retro look of this cover. And I'm getting far future spaceman, maybe on another planet. And I guess that's a city that he's looking at. I don't know. I just like the artwork. So I'm going to shelve it. Next up is Reign of the Empire, The Mask of Fear by Alexander Freed. This is a Star Wars novel. I'm not really into Star Wars novels these days. And the cover's okay. It's one of those, I guess, a Senate with a floating somebody on it. I'm not interested. I'm going to go ahead and shove it. Next up is Destiny's Way, The Doomed Earth by Jack Campbell, New York Times bestselling author of the Lost Fleet series. Is this part of the series? I don't know. I kind of like sort of this cartoony look to it. Again, this is giving me something retro about it. I hope it's not a rom-com because there's this man and woman on the cover. I'm not really feeling it though. It looks a little tongue-in-cheek and I'm not sure if it's supposed to be. So I'm going to shove it. And finally, in science fiction, Symbiote by Michael Nayak. And it's a very simple illustration, and sometimes that works for me. I guess there's this iceberg, and there's this red triangle under it. It's giving me a lot of like The Thing, or, something in Antarctica uncovered. I would be surprised if that's not what it's about. Not really drawing me in, though. Oh, also the TV series Helix. I'm going to go ahead and shove it. Now we move on to fantasy. And first up is Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales, a novel by Heather Fawcett. This is book 3 of the Emily Wilde series. When I first saw the cover on book 1, I loved that. This is my favorite of all these Emily Wilde covers because there's the cat, there are bees, there are eyeballs, there's this branch with a hand on it, mushrooms, and there's a sewing kit or sewing needle. I love this cover. But, I'm not going to pick up a book 3 of the series. But let me know in the comments if you know anything about this series because it looks adorable. But for now, I'm going to shove it. Next up is Blackwoods, Blue Sky, a novel by Eowyn Ivey. Is that how you pronounce that name? Anyway, it's this very simple, almost looks like a child's drawing on the cover of a bear and a girl and some trees. And the silhouette of the bear looks like a human. So, werebear? Maybe. Not really being sold on this cover, though. So, I'm going to go ahead and shove it. Next up is The Dark Mirror by Samantha Shannon. And it says a Bone Season novel. So I'm assuming this is part of a series. I love this cover though. I love the illustration. I love the flowers. It looks very rich. I have read Priory of an Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, and it wasn't my favorite fantasy. And because of that, and because I think this is a series, I'm going to shove it. Next up is Grave Empire by Richard Swan. And I like this cover. I like the illustration. It's very Napoleonic, I guess, in a sort of necromancy type way. And maybe American Revolution. There's a fox, a shark. Oh, it looks really interesting. I'm getting pirate, a lot of pirate vibes on this. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and shelve it. And finally, in fantasy, we have Upon a Starlit Tide by Kel Woods. I love this artwork. It's very Art Deco. The colors are very crisp. The drawing is very defined. And it's about a mermaid. I'm not really big on mermaid books, but as mermaids go, this looks very intriguing. And again, because of the Art Deco look, I'm going to think it's the turn of the 20th century or 19th century. Maybe. Oh, I like this artwork. I'm going to go ahead and shelve it. Now we move on to horror. And first up is The Resurrectionist by A. Ray Dunlap. And there's this like rib cage and pelvis with lines through it. So Resurrectionist, I'm getting Frankenstein, maybe a little Lovecraft. I kind of like this illustration. I kind of like what the cover is telling me. I feel like I kind of know the story. It's maybe like a historical. I'm going to go ahead and shelve it. Next up is What the Woods Took by Courtney Gould. And it's a person's face. I think it's a woman maybe. And there are, I think that's like trees from a forest, but it looks like everything is dripping up. And there are 4 people underneath this person. Could be young adult, maybe. I don't know. Not that drawn to this one. I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is Beneath the Poet's House by Krista Carmen. And it says a thriller. So it looks like a ghost story from the cover, though. It looks like some paintings. There's a man and there's a woman underneath. Bram Stoker Award-nominated author. I'm getting ghost story. It says thriller, but I'm getting ghost story. And not really being drawn to this cover, so I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is We Are the Beasts by Gigi Griffith. There are butterflies in this wolf or dog snout or beast snout is eating the butterflies. That doesn't seem very scary to me, but I mean, there's blood and there's teeth. This is a little cartoony. Not really. I may pick this up at a bookstore to read the blurb, but just by the cover, no, I'm going to have to shove it. And finally, in horror, and our last book, All Your Friends Are Here by M. Shaw. And I like this illustration a lot. It's very detailed. Looks like someone in a hazmat suit, a deer or something. There's like an eyeball in the tree, and there's an X on the ground as if X marks the spot. Okay, I am intrigued by this. It looks like a little doll or something too, and there's a phone. There's so much going on in this. I love these really detailed covers. The more you look at it, the more you see. Of course, I'm going to shelve it. Okay, it looks like I picked 5 books. 1 science fiction, 2 fantasy, and 2 horror. In science fiction, it's The Fourth Consort by Edward Ashton. In fantasy, it's Grave Empire by Richard Swan and Upon a Starlit Tide by Kerry Woods. In horror, it's The Resurrectionist by A. Dunlap and All Your Friends Are Here by M. Shaw. So, I'm going to say no to the science fiction because I think the other covers are just better. And do I want a fantasy or a horror? Just look at these covers. It's going to be between Upon a Starlit Tide and All Your Friends Are Here. Those are the 2 covers that are standing out. And of these 2, I'm going to go with the horror. I'm going to go with M. Shaw's All Your Friends Are Here because I think that cover is so unique. There's so much to see here. I can get lost in this cover. But let's go ahead and read the blurb and see what I've gotten myself into. Your new favorite assortment of new weird lit stories about car vampires, fascist deer, memory-devouring tree gods, and the Torment Matrix. From Wonderland award-winning author M. Shaw, One Hand to Hold, One Hand to Carve. We've been trying to play it cool, but at least we can confirm what you've always secretly dreamed of. All your friends are here. Why leave your apartment ever again? All your friends are here. Why go to outer space? All your friends are here. Why grow or dream? Why take that vacation you've been saving up for? Why set yourself free? All your friends are here. Contains a brand new novelette written especially for this collection, Ready Player N+1. Okay, I was not expecting an anthology. I have not read M. Shaw before, but maybe they're known for their short fiction. So I'll be reading an anthology of short fiction, horror fiction. I'm not that mad about it because I used to read short fiction more than I do now, so this is kind of getting back to basics. And in fact, I picked Clive Barker's Books of Blood before he wrote any novels back in the 80s, so maybe I'm finding a new author. I don't know. But what I really want to know is what books you would have picked based solely on their covers. Let me know down in the comments, and while you're there, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.